to go
I'll
with.
start with number one, Mr.
Number one.
And I ask the reading be dispensed.
Consider done. Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My amendment would prohibit the use of funds in the bill for the implementation of the offshore continental shelf drilling proposals that the administration proposed in January of this year. Earlier this year, I sent a letter along with all my fellow Democratic members of this subcommittee to Secretary Zinke with our view that the drilling proposal is one of the most outrageous and irresponsible proposals to come out of President Trump's administration. Although the letter is yet to be responded to, my feelings about this have not changed, and neither have the facts. Thousands of people living in the state of Maine depend on a beautiful, healthy ocean to make a living, all of which could be jeopardized by an oil spill. Mainers have serious concerns with this offshore drilling proposal and its inadequate public process. Currently, 94% of the outer continental shelf is off limits to drilling, and rightly so, given the importance of protecting our economic and cultural value of the country's coastlines. This draft plan would open up over 90% of the outer continental shelf to oil and gas drilling, from Maine to Connecticut, as well as up and down the coast of the Mid-Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, the Pacific, and Alaska. Drilling would be on the table. Perhaps that's why there's been such widespread opposition. I have here, and I won't read them all, but copies of letters from many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle who have been opposed to this proposal. Many of us in this room and on this very committee have sent similar letters to the administration as I did, requesting that their coastlines be removed from the 5-year plan. Some of the letters are from the chair, Congresswoman Herrera-Butler, Congressman Diaz-Balart, Rooney, Rutherford, Harris, Taylor. There are so many of us who are opposing offshore oil drilling activities in one region or another. On this issue, we all agree. My home state of Maine is one of the states that wants out of this plan. If you measured every inch of our state's coastline and islands, it would measure an incredible 3,500 miles. These miles include some of the most beautiful places in the world and critical habitat for hundreds of species of fish and wildlife. But this is really about economics in my state. Two of my state's largest industries are tourism and fishing. Tourism in Maine is a $5.6 billion industry, 71% of which comes directly from the Maine coast. I know we often have a little banter in the committee about which one of us has the honor to have the best seafood. Sometimes people think it's the Gulf Coast shrimp, Chesapeake Bay crabs, but really we all know it's the Maine lobster. So, my colleagues, all of these fishermen, all of the men and women who harvest or fish them, all of the coastal communities whose lives depend on them are at risk with this OCS proposal. Nationwide, fishing and recreation and tourism generate $180 billion in GDP, support over 2.6 million jobs annually, and, by the way, no one wants this proposal. Our state and other states, as I said, have shown their opposition. Nearly every coastal governor is opposed to this plan, Democrats and Republicans alike. For those on the other side of the aisle that have advocated for the importance of states' rights in most circumstances, it's a shocking turn of events to hear this administration going around governors, state legislatures, and local communities to suggest opening up these areas to drilling. Opposition or concern about this offshore drilling proposal stretches from the Department of Defense to the Air Force to NASA, governors in more than 250 East Coast and Pacific Coast municipalities. There's bipartisan opposition from more than 1,700 local, state, and federal elected officials, an alliance representing over 42,000 businesses and 500,000 fishing families from Florida to Maine, and also from the Pacific Northwest, New England, Mid-Atlantic, and South Atlantic Fishery Management Councils. I reserve the balance of my time.
Okay. Thank you. Chairman Calvert.
I rise to oppose.